Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started as others continue to join. Again, Array is not able to join us as he's in transit. He might be listening on here, but he has been traveling in Washington, D.C., attending the USCRI National Directors Conference, and provided us with some updates that we'll be sharing with you in this meeting. I'm sure there'll be more to share when we meet again in 2 weeks. But first, I wanted to open up by again, thanking everybody here for the continued partnership as we navigate truly unprecedented levels of arrivals, and you'll be getting an update about the increases that we have seen. But really, we've been asked by others, what will the future of resettlement look like? And people say, what if we get another big rush, maybe of Ukrainians or maybe additionally Afghans, or from who else can predict? But the response that I've had when asked this is it will be very different than the response that occurred last fall and winter with the arrival of the Afghans, and it will be better. And the reason it will be better is because of these partnerships that have been established. And the partners that have contributed so mightily to resettlement, and the way that we've been able to convene as a community in order to address the myriad challenges that we've discussed on here. Each has been met with enthusiastic responses and support by all of you here. And so I just want to open up by again thanking everybody here for your continued connection and support of the newest arrivals to our community. And so with that, I'll go ahead and jump into our presentation for today. On the agenda, we'll of course run through our program updates before discussing a little bit more news pertaining to Ukrainian arrivals, and discussing a little bit more about updates for immigration services for newly arrived Afghans. Before I kick it over to my colleagues, Carlos, well, I guess it's just Carlos today. Carlos will be giving us more information about our community updates and some activities we have going on around here. So I'll go ahead and jump into our program updates here. So we have seen a moderate increase in arrivals over the last 2 weeks. We've had 19 individuals arrive since we last met on the 25th of May, and that is 7 cases. And just as a reminder, 7 cases and 19 individuals, that puts us in a smaller average case size than we had seen previously. So as a result of these smaller case sizes, we have seen much more ease in getting folks directly into apartments, and continue to not have folks really staying at hotels for much length of time at all. We've had a couple of larger cases who stayed for a day or 2 each prior to gaining housing, but nothing long-term. And we're very, again, thankful for the housing leads and opportunities that many of you around the table have been able to bring. Amongst those arrivals, there's functionally just one APA case, Afghan parolees, those who receive humanitarian parole, and one Afghan case that is a refugee. That is to say, the majority of arrivals that we've seen recently have come from a variety of countries, but predominantly at this point, Congo. So we continue to see sort of an evolving face of resettlement at this point. And there are additional updates about what we can expect in the future a little bit later in this presentation. Looking ahead, we do see 2 larger cases that are set to arrive next week, totaling 12 individuals. These cases are really more representative of, again, these are both refugee cases, not Afghan parolees. But these are cases that are likewise expected to move directly into housing. I believe there's also family ties with this case that they'll be staying with in the short term while we source housing. But these are cases of refugees who've been really waiting to arrive for a couple of years at this point, between the policies instituted by the last presidential administration and COVID has meant delays for these families, who are very happy that they're able to travel and make their way here to St. Louis. We did get an update from our national partner. This is part of the information that Array provided while attending the National Network Conference in DC, that they're seeing about 300 Afghan arrivals per week. And these are flights off of military bases abroad that are bringing folks here, predominantly, again, Afghan parolees, those who receive humanitarian parole. However, the 300 arriving per week is expected to change. They're expecting to see increased flights coming from military bases abroad. They expect to have a second flight that will expand the capacity up to 600 before the end of the month is out. And this is part of the trend that we've been told to expect but have not seen, which is increased APA arrivals coming from military bases abroad. We tend to hold at the 1% sort of axiom here, that we receive about 1% of total arrivals coming in to the United States through the resettlement program, in this case through APA. So for us, that functionally means about 3 Afghan parolees per week. We could expect up to 6 then by the end of this month. So I see an opportunity, for us to have expanded arrivals for APA, but at the same time, we are starting to see additional refugee arrivals. We are now booking refugee arrivals into July, which is really great to have that much notification of arrivals. Frankly, it's been rare recently that we have that much notification. So we're excited to see that the refugee pipeline is shaking out to the point where we can start to build anticipation for arrivals coming weeks ahead of time instead of hours ahead of time, which really will allow us to take the time that's needed to find the housing that's appropriate and ensure that we have services in place upon arrival. Shifting quickly here to employment. Since really Afghan resettlement has began, we had about 120 job placements since that period really began in the beginning of October. The average wage for placements across this period is $16 per hour. But I can say that looking at the trend data from the last 2 months, we've seen average wages closer to the $15 an hour mark, some even slightly below that. The wage growth that we've seen previously is somewhat tapering off. And what we are experiencing at this point is a bit of a backlog for those clients that already have job placements. We are to record that information within our systems, and I can then report that out to you. But we have had some cases of illness in the department, and we are significantly understaffed, though I do have some news to report on that front. And so we've seen a bit of a backlog in the addition of these job placements to our database very recently. Now, we are expecting to see increased capacity for processing this backlog with the addition of 2 new staff members, a job developer and a job specialist, who each started over the last 2 weeks. They are going to be building our capacity to serve our clients, and of course helping us work through this backlog additionally. So we're very excited to welcome these 2 staff members on board to again help with this next phase of resettlement and getting folks connected to employment and supporting them through their employment. Another bit of news I did want to share, again, this is coming from a Ray in that he received from the National Network meeting, is efforts around the advocacy around the Afghan Adjustment Act, which, as we described here before, would provide the opportunity for Afghan parolees in our region, which totaling a number near 700. Thank you. I see things popping into the chat, but I'm not able to respond to them with the presentation up. So thank you, Arinda, for jumping in. But with the numbers that have arrived as Afghan parolees, the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act will allow all to transfer to permanent resident status. This is really an important step for their ability to stay in the United States. Of course, they're here on temporary parole, which when that expires, they'll be forced to leave the United States. Of course, with the massive effort undertaken to transport more than now 75,000 individuals here under this program. It would be frankly a national embarrassment if we were to not provide a pathway for folks to be able to stay here permanently and gain safety. The Afghan Adjustment Act has been bandied about, put into other spending bills previously, where it has been extracted and separated from the final bill that has been passed. And so we are growing increasingly concerned about the passage of this act during this session of Congress. The next opportunity for this act to be passed is through the National Defense Appropriations Act, but that is not set to be voted upon until later in the fall. There is a notion that trying to get this passed as a separate act is maybe an idea that's dead in the water. And so the hope is attaching it to a larger funding bill might allow it to gain a broad base of support in order to see its passage. However, its passage is not certain. This has been the path that has been taken the last 2 rounds here, and it has been extracted at the 11th hour from each of the previous larger spending packages that it had been attached to. So we are very much asking for advocacy efforts to really let our elected officials understand how important this is, not just for the individuals that stand to be greatly impacted by this, but for our region. We would hate to see, there's 120 job placements that have been to date, that those folks have to leave employment because of expiration of humanitarian parole. We would hate to see the mass deportation of our Afghan allies who we have rescued to this point come the expiration of their parole. The way to do this is through the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act, the way to guarantee their continued safety in our communities and their continued contribution to our communities through their employment and through the general enrichment that they provide us come to an end. So we want to make sure that this act is in fact passed and that our elected officials understand the importance, again, not just to our clients, but to us in this region who value all that they bring to it. So with that, I'll go ahead and pivot to our updates on Ukrainian resettlement. We mentioned the last time that Afghans that have been resettled here, Ukrainians that have been resettled here under humanitarian parole have access to ORR-funded programming. We want to take the opportunity to expand on that and talk about the various programs that are both public and related to the ORR, Office of Refugee Resettlement programs that these folks can access. And folks that are arriving with humanitarian parole, some of them are arriving through the United for Ukraine program. The United for Ukraine program is actually an individual sponsorship program where individuals can sponsor individuals that they know or are connected to in Ukraine to arrive. We've seen those numbers increase, and a recent report from USCRI indicated that we are seeing many more arrivals. In fact, a 62% increase of United for Ukraine humanitarian parolees arriving week over week. So right now, about 7,000 parolees have been admitted to the United States. That represents a 63% increase over the previous week. So we know that this is beginning to occur. And we even provided a report listing the top locations for individuals that have been applied for individual sponsorship. And Missouri is not on the state list, and St. Louis is not on the city list of the top metros and states for submissions for this. So we can understand that we will not necessarily see a large number under this program as it exists right now. However, we do know that folks with humanitarian parole are making their way to our community. Some have found their way to St. Louis, and so Ukrainians with humanitarian parole can be served through the International Institute in a variety of ways, and that's really what we're presenting here. The folks with humanitarian parole will be able to access temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF. They'll be able to access Medicaid, supplemental nutrition assistance, or food stamp program. They will also be able to likewise access programs earmarked for refugees, which include our Refugee Cash Assistance Program and Refugee Medical Assistance Program as well. The enrollment in refugee services is limited in the sense that they're not going to be the same resettlement services that are available to refugees, as this is not the same resettlement system that supports refugee entry into the United States. So to your question, no, we don't, because this is not a function that the International Institute provides in terms of resettling Afghan humanitarian parolees through the United for Ukraine program. That is an individual sponsorship program where individuals are petitioning to support these arrivals. So that is not coming through the International Institute, though we have a range of services that we can provide. To date, we've seen fewer than a dozen individuals approach us to be enrolled into programs or accessing services that they feel that they need. But we, again, with the numbers that we're seeing, the momentum that's occurring with this program, we could expect to see more in the coming weeks, but we'll not have any idea about the number, as that's not going to be predetermined by any contract that we have, more the willingness of individuals to engage in individual sponsorship. Through the programming that is available to Ukrainians that are accessing the humanitarian parole really varies, but it is basically our standard supportive services beyond and separate and apart from our resettlement services. So that includes our preferred communities program, our matching grant program for work eligible folks, and refugee support services for work eligible folks as well. This differs from the intensive case management that new arrivals receive. It does not have, none of these programs have the same set of core services, including health screenings and school enrollments, et cetera, though these are services that can be accessed under these programs. These are not required or mandatory elements. Functionally, when folks enroll in these programs, it's really about meeting their individual need as they describe it. And we can assign them to caseworkers who can help assist with them accessing these things. Moving ahead to Afghan legal assistance. We recently have been discussing on these calls an award that we're still waiting to receive from the Missouri Office of Refugee Administration to deliver legal assistance to Afghans. And this award is actually is going to support a partnership that has been in play really since October of last year, that really had its genesis in these calls. Through these convenings, we're able to bring together a separate group of folks that are working on immigration assistance for Afghans who have arrived. And through those calls, we've established a coalition that will be working together under this grant to provide support for Afghans who are seeking not just asylum as the transition from their parolee status, but special immigrant visas or temporary protective status, whatever they will transition to beyond their parolee status. And of course, if the passage of the Afghan Adjustment Act does occur during this project, we will of course be pivoting to be helping folks access permanent residency through this program as well. But this regional partnership includes the MICA project, as well as Catholic Legal Aid Ministries through St. Francis Community Center, and also BIAS as well. And this coalition will be working to have screeners in each of our offices where we are seeing people come in and seeking legal assistance. And those screeners will be getting information to help folks who are going to be referred to these pro se asylum clinics that we'll be hosting. And we're going to be seeking a lot of pro bono legal assistance from attorneys in order to help process these asylum applications. We do have asylum training for pro bono attorneys who are able to volunteer their time to assist with this. But our focus is going to be providing these services in mass, or in as much of a mass as we can provide. And this project is be heavily reliant on pro bono legal assistance. And Our partners at St. Francis are working to aggregate lists of legal assistants and those willing to provide their skills as attorneys in this process. So if you or anybody you know are interested in providing pro bono hours to these pro se clinics, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can get you connected to the organizations that we're working with to aggregate those hours. Within the funding available through this initial grant through Missouri Office of Refugee Administration, we will be providing language assistance for individuals. So there's not a need for the attorneys to, of course, speak Pashto or any other language other than English, because we'll be able to have a very generous portion of language assistance dollars available to provide interpretation and translation as needed. This grant is also going to allow us to provide some travel for court appearances. Functionally, anybody applying for asylum has to appear in front of an immigration court judge. We do not have any such courtrooms in our region, which means that the vast majority of folks seen through this will have to have their cases heard in courts in Chicago or possibly Kansas City. Some might be able to be heard here, as there are circuit rides where processing for these sorts of things can come through, but they're here for a brief time and only able to handle a small number of cases. So we do anticipate a large number of people having to travel in order to be able to make these appearances. And so we do have some costs in this grant that are going to allow us to cover some of those travel expenditures for those folks that have to make that trip. In addition to these funds, just this week, we were notified that we will be receiving an additional award from USCRI. This is our Preferred Communities Supplemental 2 program. And the funds within this grant are going to be going towards Afghan housing, as well as legal assistance for Afghans. We are right now in negotiation around the dollar amount that we'll be able to apply for legal assistance, which for us is the priority right now. And we want to make sure that those efforts are fully funded, where we might need to engage in paid attorneys' fees for appearances in court or elsewhere. We want to make sure that we're reserving these funds to cover those costs. And Paul in the chat says there are 37 approved Ukrainian parole cases in the St. Louis area. And I would say that a third of those have actually made their way to us at this point to get connected for one service or another. So excited to hear that number is that large and growing. Regarding this, the second pot of funds for legal assistance, again, we really want to reserve this for some of the fees that we know our clients are going to incur in court and on their way to getting representation in court. So that is going to be the focus of the second round of funding almost entirely. We are still seeking subcontracting assistance, though, for our Missouri Office of Refugee Administration Afghan legal assistance funds. So if you are part of an organization that can assist with the delivery of the pro se asylum clinics, or able to provide some screening for Afghans who are approaching around legal assistance, please also feel free to reach out and we can talk about how you might be able to get connected to that. Pivoting a bit here, I do want to talk a little bit more about our Afghan Community Support Program, and I'm not sure if we have Moji Siddiqui on the line with us today or not. Doesn't look like it, but I did want to make mention of some actions and activities related to that program, including a convening this evening at the Mitsubishi Room at Cortex. We will be hosting a town hall meeting, and the focus of this is around the establishment of the Afghan Chamber of Commerce. We've invited members of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber, and the African Chamber of Commerce to attend to talk about their experiences in establishing ethnic chambers of commerce, as well as to address questions from the audience around really what does the Chamber of Commerce do, how it will support Afghan business owners in the community, and how it will attract, as we hope, Afghan businesses to our region. I will be speaking as part of this event this evening, as well as our CEO, Areo Benson, and Jerry Schlichter as well. And Jerry is a driving force behind our Afghan community support program. We're very happy to have him be able to be in attendance and talk a bit more about his vision for the chamber and how that will be a resource for us here locally. In addition to that, I want to make reference to our World Refugee Day. And if you are missing the energy that Kelly Moore brings to this section, I apologize. I'm going to try to replicate that right now. We have our World Refugee Day activities that are going to be taking place here at the International Institute on June 18th. This is a celebration of really the safety and security that refugees have been able to find, not just in our community, but around the world, and honoring their experience as well. The day is jam-packed with speakers, with a lot of music and fun for everybody, as well as experiential learning opportunities for folks to really walk in the footsteps of refugees. We're really excited to be able to offer this really new experience that really puts attendees in the shoes of a refugee and asks them to make choices and face some of the challenges that refugees face in both fleeing and establishing a new life in a new community. We are still seeking volunteers for this event. So if you do have time, any amount of time that you can devote to help put on this really fantastic event, we would really appreciate that. And if you can't volunteer, hopefully you have an opportunity to stop by and enjoy some of the food, some of the fun, and learn a little bit along the way, and invite some of your friends and family as well on this experience with us. We're really excited to be able to have this event here on site. Is again one of the ways that we can honor the journey of refugees in our community. So thank you, and please share widely. We do have this information available on our Facebook page. Like, share, implore others to come and really, again, honor the journey and maybe learn a little thing or two along the way. With that, I will go ahead and kick it over to Carlos for our volunteer and community updates. Carlos.
Thanks, Blake, and great to see everyone this afternoon. Just really as a reminder, to reinforce what Blake mentioned for World Refugee Day, this year's theme is whoever, wherever, whenever, and everyone has the right to safety. We have some great volunteer opportunities via our website for those that would like to participate in that capacity, in addition to attending. This July 2nd, too, as a part of the America's Birthday Parade, we're going to be walking alongside in the Let Freedom Ring Parade. So we hope to see many great faces and partners out there for this event. And then, of course, coming back to Tower Grove Park is the Festival of Nations on August 27th and 28th. Again, there's volunteer opportunities for this listed on our website, in which we're in great need of a vast number of volunteers. So we look forward to seeing also many great faces for this event. We have initiated community volunteer orientations in the last couple of weeks. This is something we're going to be continuing doing and see. We'll be posting more dates to be announced soon, but I just want to give everyone a heads up that these community volunteer orientations are, for one, really a way for volunteers to get for us to educate the community on what services and programs that the International Institute provides and how community volunteers can work alongside and help support our programs and provide supplemental support in addition to what we do here at the International Institute. It's great for particularly for families that, individuals that are working or collaborating with families, new arrival families, but also for volunteers at large that are wanting to know more about the work of the International Institute. And this is going to be essentially a requirement for individuals that are working with families through our partnerships and collaboration. So we'll be posting some more dates here for those orientations. We've had a great couple too, with some solid participation and attendance. So look forward to sharing more on that in the coming few days or next week or so. And go to the next slide. And just to reiterate some opportunities for support for World Refugee Day, for public transportation for volunteers, and through our community support program. Of course, as we're expecting, more arrivals coming here very shortly, we are always excited to receive more grocery gift cards, especially to Schnucks and Aldi, as well as individual or contributions to the TAO fund, and which the TAO fund goes directly to support new arrivals and refugees and their needs. Next slide. So again, for volunteering, please go to the International Institute's website /volunteer, and those have our regularly listed opportunities, as well as some episodic opportunities through different departments, and more instructions on those opportunities and engaging can be seen there. The community support program for individuals here locally that want to work alongside new arrivals, please do not hesitate to reach out to our colleague Wafa, who oversees the community support program, and she can share more information on what it takes to really have a group of individuals lined up to support an arrival family. And then youth programming, for those that are particularly interested in supporting the youth program that we have through the Institute, please reach out to Catherine, as well as volunteer groups for the Festival of Nations to Chrissy. Volunteer groups are really going to be essential during this festival, during the Festival of Nations, since we have expecting a large attendance, have a lot of needs, and this is a great way for community groups, corporate groups, organizations, individuals to really get involved in highlighting and embracing the mission and vision of the International Institute and building an inclusive St. Louis. So please don't hesitate to reach out to Chrissy. And of course, donations are always graciously and accepted. And we thank everyone who's donated already, and that will continue to donate here at the International Institute. And so, yeah, just a reminder, follow us through our social media outlets and channels via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I will also mention that our YouTube channel does have content from previous community update calls, and it's a great resource as well for those that want to know more about the Institute and the work that we have here. And so, yeah, really appreciate everyone's support, and we'll continue to share more on the community updates here in the coming weeks. So I'll hand it back over to you, Blake.
Thank you, Carlos. And with that, I do want to open it up for any questions. And I do see, thank you for those of you who asked questions in the chat, and thank you, Paul, for responding to the vast majority of these. Appreciate it. I do see one that is outstanding that I do want to address, and that is question regarding work eligibility. Lee asked, I believe this is in reference to Ukrainians, will they have authorization to work? Lee, yes, Ukrainians arriving under Ukrainian humanitarian parole will have the ability to apply for work authorization. What is not clear to us as of yet, given the low volume right now, is whether or not they will have already submitted those applications prior to arrival or not. It seems that some will and some will have not. For those that, well, for anybody that applying, we are seeing significant delays still in the issuance of those documents. So for some, it could be a matter of months prior to them receiving that work authorization document and then being eligible to work once they have that in hand. But fundamentally, their status allows them access to work authorization. They will not be allowed to work, though, until they have that document in hand. Great question. Thank you. Anything else that I missed in the chat or needs further explanation? I did see a question around the total number of arrivals. And yes, we have resettled about 700 total individuals, but if the question was pertaining to Afghans, that number is 597 to date. Now, if we kind of look over sort of this same period going back to the beginning of this federal fiscal year, back in October, we in the same period have resettled about 272 refugees. So the total, for the region in our arrivals is beyond that 700 mark at this point, close to about 930 or so. Are there any other questions or comments or any other news that any other organization would like to maybe share on the call today?
I have one question.
Go ahead, Riz.
Already, this was regarding the grocery deliveries we did last Sunday to the Afghan family. They were about 40 pounds bag with like 20-pound rice and all those with a Brita pitcher with 2 filters. What we understand that already that many of them were not interested in the food, the groceries. I have almost like 3,000 pounds of groceries in my basement, and already when we took about like 11 or 12. Carlos, we talk about 11, right? 10 to 11. Yeah. So already out of that, many of them were not interested. They were not available. They didn't want it to. A couple of them said they don't want it. So already, I just wanted to make sure that already we wanted to, because if you give free to anyone, anybody will take it. But at the same time, these families, I think, started to work. They're getting a job, as you mentioned. And we wanted to make sure these resources are used properly rather than, just giving away. If we have to find a family that those are really in need. And we are totally dedicated and we are committed to do whatever it takes to help any family, not Afghans, Ukrainians, or anyone. We are 100% with you. So please guide us at how we can use this in a right way.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you for your continued partnership, Riz, and Little Angels Foundation. For those who are unaware, have been a very great partner to us, and particularly in the way that they've helped feed folks who are in temporary housing and into that they've gone to permanent housing, but have yet again been able to access food stamps. And that was the real challenge. And those families that we connected with are those that we know who are not right now having issues, or who have not been issued food stamps. And so the thought was that they would need some food supports. Now, several of those families the reason why they're not getting food stamps is because they've actually earned out of food stamps. They have family members that have gone to work and they're earning enough where that benefit's been reduced to zero. It's good that folks aren't in need of food. I mean, that's a wonderful thing, but that's that group, right? We'd love to put ourselves out of business. That would be great. That's the goal, after all. But I think I think that having the support that you've been able to provide, these are things that change on a weekly basis. Right now, we're getting weekly updates around those that are not accessing food stamps, are not able to. So it's going to mirror arrivals. There's fewer now because we have had fewer arrivals, so that is beginning to pick up, and I'm sure that there will be a need for that again in the near future. The way that we have seen sort of these delays with the issuance of SNAP occurring. But we can talk more about anything that isn't shelf stable that can't be held onto and what we might be able to do with that. Happy to talk with you about that offline, Bruce.
And already we discussed with Carlo that already maybe this time next thing, because we were giving food to the single members. Now maybe we try with the bigger families with 8 or 10 or 12, where only one person is going for a job, but he's got like 7, 8 people to feed. So I think Carlos, we had a discussion, Carlos wanted to give it to them as well. So already I was in the impression that let's do first these people and then go to the next one. So maybe we'll discuss with you and Carlos and already how to go about them and reach out to the bigger families now.
So that would be great.
Thank
Really
you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bruce.
much, Blake.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think it was great, just a learning experience in this process. So, you know,
Of
it's
course.
something that we can pivot and see where, you know, the needs lie the greatest from the families. So
You have a better vision, Carlos. I don't have. So
Any other questions or comments or points of discussion? I did see, you know, Anna Paul mentioned in the chat, a good resource would be the St. Louis Food Bank or Operation Food Search. And I think, you know, absolutely anything that we can't distribute, that'd be a great place to make a donation. Anything else? Any other topics, questions, comments, thoughts? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close this meeting and again, say thank you to everybody for your continued support, your continued connection. We couldn't do half of what we do without you and the partnerships that we were able to establish. So thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care.